Is clutter distracting you from enjoying your space? You're going to tackle it head on with our July decluttering challenge.
We start by decluttering just one piece on the first day and progressing each day until you actually end up removing 465 items by the end. Participate in a live kickoff event, weekly support sessions, and celebrate your progress at our closing event.
Clear your space, clear your mind. Join us and turn clutter into clarity by signing up today at takecontroladhd.com/declutter. That's takecontroladhd.com/declutter.
And if you can't make it to the challenge, we still have you covered. The Organizing Your Space online course is 30% off during the month of July.
takecontroladhd.com/declutter. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on True Story FM. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
Nikki Kinzer, ADHD coach, organizer, and Mad Men aficionado.
I am at this moment.
At this very moment.
Rewatching it.
Yeah, outstanding. Yep. We've been talking in the member pre-show. If you were members over at Patreon, you would have listened to an extraordinary pre-show about home hygiene. I think that's safe to say. Entertainment and pets, cats. Yeah. It was delightful. We would love to have you over there. And that's what you get when you hang out with us at patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. That is the very best way to support this show, is to throw a few bucks a month our way. It supports the show. It supports the team who works on the show. And it gets you into our Discord community server at the top secret levels. So you can see all the activity. Now, you don't have to jump in right at the Patreon level. You can jump in for free. Just visit takecontroladhd.com/discord and you'll get the free channels. The best way to hook up with us, though, is definitely at that Patreon level, and you get your own podcast feed of all the member versions of all the stuff that we do. You get early access to all of the episodes, and you get access to, at some levels, you get to join us, me and Nikki, for assorted and sundry events throughout the month, and like coaching and tech talks with Coffee with Pete, and we try to do a lot of fun stuff, and we love the community so much. We thank you so much for your support. Nikki, today, organizing principles, principled organizing. Which is it? I guess we'll never know. Where would you like to start today?
Well, I want to do a little bit of a summary of what we did last week, because this is a series, right?
Yes, this is part 2.
This is part 2. And last week we covered sorting, which was decluttering your spaces. And in summary, what we were doing there is we were taking an inventory of what you have in your home in different spaces and deciding what's going to stay, what's going to leave. And so that's the very first step, right? Is we don't want to be thinking too much about anything except for making those decisions. And now we are in step 2, which is the actual organizing step. So now we've got to figure out where we are going to place the items that we are keeping.
Yes.
Before I get into organizing principles with ADHD, I just want to say, for anyone who is following this series and actually, was actually inspired to do something, maybe over the time that they listened to the first to the second episode, be very proud of yourself. Good job. Because
that you're still here.
Well, yeah, because that first step, you can't do any of the other steps without that first step.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. So I definitely want to acknowledge that it's hard to let things go. And if you're listening to this, then, good job.
Good job.
Got a pat on the
hard,
back.
but it gets a little bit addictive letting things go, I think.
I think it does too.
Yeah.
Just because
once you get over the hump, once you sort of break the seal, it's like, oh, you really start, you can start being really hard on past self's efforts to collect items. And it's easy
because
to
it brings
just let
this
it go.
clarity, right? Like it brings this clarity of, oh my gosh, I can see the floor. I can see this shelf. Like I can see that this is where this book is. So yeah, it's that type of results. Those results just really feel good. And so we need to now figure out, what do we do with this? Because we want to get to stage 3, which is maintaining, and you can't maintain a space without organizing the space first.
But I do like the idea that we're coming to this with a set of principles. These are not like this is not necessarily a how-to. It's kind of a how-to, but really it's like here are a set of guidelines. And if you follow the guidelines, the result will be, organizing. You'll be able to organize as long as you follow the guidelines,
right?
The principles. And I think that's really important. And one of my favorite things is the School of Fish rules, right? Like the School of Fish guidelines. Fish.
Oh, where are you going to talk about that?
I don't know,
Fish.
Nikki. I feel like there is a place, and you might learn more about it at takecontroladhd.com/ADHD book, where you might find information on the book Unapologetically ADHD by Nikki Kinzer and Pete Wright. One of the things I talk about in the book,
yes,
is behavior of schooling fish. And like the fish have some very, very simple rules, right? One is don't touch one another. One is don't stay very far away from one another, and one is if one turns, you should also turn. And all of those things kind of work together. And once you realize that, that's like it's just those 3 simple little rules that keep an entire school of fish together, right?
Amazing.
Like always stay as close as you can to the center. Don't stay too far apart, and don't get too close. And then they don't touch each other, and they can find food, and they are alert when danger comes. It's the same thing weirdly with organizing principles. If you have this ideal of what something should look like, then you're not going to get there, and you're not going to be able to maintain it. But if you have a set of behaviors, those behaviors will demonstrate to you repeatedly how you can maintain an organized lifestyle.
And it's so true. And, I never really thought of these as being behaviors, but they really are. So I'm glad you bring that up, because it really, truly is. So good job, Pete, right?
Well, thank you.
All right. So the intention here is exactly what he's saying, is that we are looking, first of all, when we're organizing our spaces, especially when you have ADHD, it is not about perfection, and it's not about the prettiness. I don't know if that's a word. The pretty part of organizing that you see like in magazines and on Pinterest and all of that, right? Like labels are good. We'll talk about labels, but it doesn't have to look a certain way. So it's all about function. We want to make sure you can find what you need when you need it. And when there is less stuff in your home, in your spaces, wherever you're organizing, this does become easier to achieve. So, I mean, it just is, right? So we're not minimalists by any means, but it is true that when you have less, it is easier to maintain and to find things. So these set of kind of behaviors, first of all, is organizing products. We've talked about this a lot when we've talked about organizing, but there is a very much a standard rule if you're working in spaces, to not buy anything unless you know the purpose of what you're going to use it for. Otherwise, they will become dumping grounds for more clutter and miscellaneous stuff. And I know this by experience, because I get excited when I go to a store and I see that these things are on sale. My husband's done it before, where like, I don't know what we're going to use them for, but they were on sale. It was such a good thing. Like, and then he brings all this stuff, home. We all are guilty of it. But we're also guilty of just putting a bunch of stuff in random boxes and, not doing anything with it. And that might be fine until you have to move. And then it sucks, because now you have to like deal with it at some point. So definitely don't buy anything unless you know the purpose and know what you're going to use it for.
What if my purpose is I collect organizing paraphernalia?
Well, let's do that in an organized way, I suppose. Good point. But that's a whole nother ball game that we're talking about there. So any other questions about organizing products that you're going to throw at me, Pete?
No. I feel like, because I do relate. I was once, I had some maladaptive behavior around boxes and bins.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
glad to be done with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
fun. They're fun until they just become, dumping grounds.
Yeah.
So the other behavior that I think is really important around organizing with ADHD is we want things to be accessible for you. We want things to be easy to reach and easy to see. So these next two principles really work together. We want out of sight is out of mind, right? So if you don't see it, you forget that it's there. If it's hard to reach, you're not going to probably get it, or you're definitely not going to put it back.
Yes.
Right. So you may get it and then it's just going to sit there. So let's talk about the first one, making things accessible. So again, the things you use most, we want it to have the easiest places for them to get and to put back.
Yeah.
We definitely want to think about vertical space. The shelves and racks are great friends, right? Because then it avoids like stacking on top of each other. You actually have a little bit of divider there.
I would just want to throw in shelves and racks and step stools.
And step stools, yes,
They
are
all
important.
go together.
They
You've
all
got
go
to have
together.
some sort of a step stool if you are working on vertical space.
Absolutely. We don't want to stuff bins too much because that makes them heavy. We'll get them down, but we won't put them back up.
Mm-hmm.
So we want, again, things that we can easily get into. We can be creative. So, there's one of the things that I think is great about organizing with ADHD is that it doesn't have to be just boxes and bins. You can use baskets. You could use laundry baskets. You can hook things. Like I remember when I was hooks. I mean, like I had a client who hated hanging anything up. So we just ended up putting a bunch of hooks in the room. So it was a lot easier to just, put it on a hook. I had a client who this was an ADHD client that I was working with, but she showed me a way that she was organizing her clothes. And it was just so simple. It was just, these open bins, and then she would write like, shirts, and then she would just throw her shirts in there. It wasn't like they were like nice and tidy, but at least she knew where all the shirts were.
She knew where the shirts were.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it was all very creative. So definitely, anything that catches your interest that you think you would use, I think are all really good things.
I lose today's ADHD drinking game because Steve in our member chat room dropped command hooks before I was able to do so.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. I was not able to get command strips in, but command strips and command hooks are for
absolutely
the win, for sure. But I will say my mother, for some years, went all in on hooks and drilled a lot of holes in the walls. And because at the time, she apparently had things to hang up. And over the years, the needs changed. And now her house is full of hooks with nothing on them because she doesn't have stuff to hang anymore.
Yeah.
So, be aware of that.
Like she's ready.
She's ready to hang stuff if stuff comes in that needs to be hung.
Absolutely. Well,
so, all right.
Yeah. I have a couple of examples just to kind of, put a vision out there for people when we talk about place items where you use them and can see them. The kitchen and bathroom are really great examples around this. So again, we're looking for easy access. So look at the everyday pots and pans that you use. Are those easy to find and are they easy to put away? And if you're going to nest them, are they nested in a way that is easy, right? So we don't want to keep pots and pans out from the cupboard or onto the counter if we can't put them back. So definitely be thinking about that in your kitchen. What are the, everyday dishes? Are they easy to put away? Like, so unloading my dishwasher is really simple because everything's pretty laid out. It's pretty easy, simple to see like where things go. So when you're thinking about putting things back, think about that. In the bathroom, one of my favorite things is the basket, like the little carrier for everyday grooming and like makeup. So I have this it's a silver basket, and then it has these like containers inside the basket, and my makeup is all organized, like the brushes and stuff. So all I do is I pick up the basket, put it on my counter, do my makeup, and then I put it back under the counter. It's a very easy thing to do, but it keeps the counter from being cluttered. And it's so simple, right? So it's not something hard. So that's something you could do very easily to keep your bathroom, especially if you have a small bathroom.
Yeah, right. And I am a huge fan of sliding bins like that. And that's one of the things my office closet has really benefited from because of all the gear I have. Like I've tried to move everything out of like plastic drawers and things and just use bins that I can take off a little shelf and put back when I'm done using it. Because honestly, it's always easier to get into something from the top than it is from the side. And it just stays more organized. It's much better. So big fan of sliding bins that fit on shelves.
Absolutely. And this is where labels are, I think, make a huge difference, especially if you do have like the bins or the baskets, or clear bins are better than bins that you can't see. I've always been a fan too of like colored bins for holidays. So having like green and red for Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas, orange and black for Halloween in November, like that's good because that's a visual cue of that's where those things are. And then, like you were saying, the the baskets that you can look inside, like on top, it makes a huge difference that they don't have lids on them, right?
Right.
And the labels, I just want to go back to that. I mean, I think that there's so much value to that. And I've seen where some people like go overboard and they label everything, but that helps them. So there isn't, a rule of how many labels you should use or not use. If it helps you stay organized, then that makes, a huge difference. And then I think this makes sense, but I think we forget that we want to contain like items together, like things that are, like each other, because then it's easier to find, easier to put back. When I was going through in our pre-show, I was talking about a bonus room that I'm going through right now to get ready for guests to come to our house. And I had found this like tape, and it's supposed to be like first aid type of tape. And so it was easy for me to find it and know, oh, I'm going to put this in the laundry room where the first aid, stuff is. And so just keeping those things together. In the organizing the declutter challenge that we did in January, there was sort of this whole joke around how many I can't say the word thermometers. See, I couldn't say it in January either, and now I still can't say it. I have a lot of them.
You have a lot of thermometers?
Yes. A lot of people get sick at my house, and we're not going to get rid of them, because that's the thing about duplicates, is that sometimes we want duplicates. Sometimes we need to have duplicates because we lose the things. So we have like one in our bathroom, and then we have another one in our upstairs bathroom, and then we have another one in the first aid kit. So, we want to also organize the way that you think. And again, there's not a hard or fast rule that says all of them have to be together.
Okay, but let me just throw this one out.
And Steve knows what I'm talking about because he was there. He knows about the thermometers.
The thermometers.
Thermometers.
Yes. So there is like keeping like items together. That's one thing. But I can hear somebody saying, but wait a minute. What about my kitchen junk drawer? The kitchen junk drawer is a great example of organizing not like items, but organizing items where the likeness is by space. Like I use all of these random things, but I use them all in the kitchen. That's how junk drawers are created,
yeah,
right?
I'll take a picture of my junk drawer because this is something I tackled in January during our declutter challenge back then. And we're having another one in July. So we got to throw that out. But I'll take a picture of mine because I did work on that in January, and it is still organized. And that's 6 months later. And
nice flex.
Thank you. Because that is where the organizing container thing works. Because I have these sections in the drawer that make a huge difference. And so, yeah, there's random stuff in there for sure, but they sure look nice because they're all sectioned in these little like squares and rectangles and stuff. So yeah, you can have a drawer that's kind of random, but it doesn't have to look bad. It can still be somewhat, sorted.
Distinguished. I am a huge fan of especially junk drawers, like putting this, separators in there, something to help you kind of, even within organizing by space, doing it by purpose. I'm also a huge fan of magnets. Oh my goodness. And I think I'm kind of a recent convert to magnets. Normally we have a bunch of magnets on our refrigerator and it's just like they're holding graduation cards that we want to look at or something like that. But then we started getting kitchen supplies that are magnetizable, like our kitchen meat thermometer has magnets on it. So it's always right by the stove because the refrigerator and the stove are together.
Okay, that is actually really smart.
It's always there and it's so easy to put away.
Yeah.
And so the more kind of utensils I can get that are magnetized, the better. Like I'm a huge fan of magnets. Pete's Big Awakening, magnets, y'all. It's the future. Yeah.
Hooks, 3M hooks and magnets all over his house. Yeah.
All over. Yep.
Actually, that's really smart though, because we have 3 different areas where that meat temperature thing could go. And it always gets lost at some point, because of that. So or broken. They're not real sturdy. Is the one
they're not real sturdy.
Yeah.
On the one that we have on the refrigerator hasn't gotten broken because it's not knocking around in drawers. It's not being thrown into places, to the bowels of the utensil drawer. Yeah, it's very, very handy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that that's the key is that you want to place things where you'll find them and what's natural to you. And again, out of sight is out of mind. So it is really important that we keep those most important things front and center in those prime real estate areas of your home. And then everything else can go up on top of shelves behind, the back of the closet, those kind of things, because you don't get to them as often or you don't need to use them as often. The last thing I would say is if you live with other people in your home, definitely have some kind of meeting of the minds of where things are going to go. Because a part of staying organized is knowing where to put things back. And if you do this all by yourself and you don't let your spouse or your partner or your roommate know that this is where things go, it's going to be put in the wrong place because they're not going to know. And so I think getting people's buy-in and working together and figuring out like what makes the most sense, and depending on what your situation is, if you have young kids versus if you have an adult roommate, like that's going to all vary. But I think it is important to have those conversations and do it together. And so that everyone's on the same page. And so this last line, Pete.
Yeah.
For everything, there is a place. That
what's the punchline of that?
Well, that was take control organizing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But then there's a second part. You didn't put the second part.
I don't remember the second part.
Nikki, I am shocked.
I remember for everything there is a place.
And for every place, there is a purpose.
How did I forget that?
I don't know. That was our tagline for the first book that we wrote.
Wow. Okay.
I know.
I'm going to blame that on age. I don't remember things. For everything, there is a place. And for everything, there is a purpose? Is that what it was?
For every place, there is a purpose.
For every place, there is a purpose, which makes sense.
Yeah. Makes more sense than the other thing. For everything, there is a place. And for everything, there is a purpose.
There's a purpose.
Also,
there's a purpose
have
for
places
everything.
And purposes. And places are purposeful too.
See, this is why you did that and not me. Because I would have had some weird tagline. For everything. For everything.
I keep that. I keep that in my head. That is a really valuable little aphorism.
Oh, it is.
Because sometimes your places don't necessarily have things in them, but that's okay because their purpose is to be decluttered.
Right.
Their entire purpose is not to have things in them, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
So I think that assessment of both the things and the places is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love that.
Okay, so that's part 2. We are finished with part 2 of our organizing series. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Thank you for listening to the show. We appreciate your time and your attention. So don't forget, you can, if you have something to contribute, head over to our Discord channel, just like all of our wonderful members. And you can find the Discord Show Talk channel right there by visiting patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. And if you join at the deluxe level or better, that's where you get the secret stuff. We would love to have you there. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we will see you right back here next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.